and welcome to the Rainbow Umbrella, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything under the rainbow. And here it is, folks, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills episode. The joy on your face, my love, it's beautiful. Welcome, Lizzie. Let's talk Real Housewives.
Kia ora, Mel. Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime, you know that.
I have had a grin on my face for possibly months now. I've been so excited about this.
Amazing. I would also just like to point out to our listeners, in true nerd fashion, we have both taken notes. We have both arrived with notes. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited. So, yeah, this kind of came off the back of the Favourite Things episode that we did. So let's expand on it. Why Real Housewives, Lemon?
Oh, what a loaded question. And you also introduced it as Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but I will not be limiting myself.
Oh, I would never expect you to.
Because I finally sat down and did the maths on this, and I have watched 87 seasons of...
I'm going to need a minute. 87 seasons.
Would you like me to translate that into hours for you?
Yes, ma'am, I would.
Conservatively, 1,160 hours or 48 days.
I've never loved you more.
That's lucky because it was a bit of a shock.
That's it, real. And how do you feel about that?
Oddly proud, I will say. You know, as a media buff, I mean, I get a lot of grief for liking Real Housewives, and I lean into that. I'm okay with that. But that did seem like quite a high number, but bearing in mind it's been over about a decade. I think that's fair.
I'd say that's an average amount of content over 10 years.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
I don't know. What's an average amount of content in 10 years?
Who's to say?
That is impressive, though. So how many seasons are there?
So if I refer to my notes.
Yes, please.
No, this is all off the top of my head. So there are... Okay, so it started in 2006 in Orange County. There are 11 season series, I should say, in the USA, and around 21 international series with 27 spin-offs so far. So I have barely scratched the surface. There's like 7 USA seasons I watch, and I think I've seen 2 international seasons, so that's it.
And does Andy Cohen do them all?
He does all of the USA ones. I mean, he's an executive producer and I think a co-creator in some capacity. I did not look that up, but he is definitely involved.
Yeah.
So he hosts the reunion episodes at the end of each season for the USA shows. For the international ones, I don't believe he does. I don't believe I've seen him do any.
Okay.
Yeah.
That man must be making bank, though. USA alone,
He's also got his own talk show, Watch What Happens Live, where he involves the housewives in that. It takes place in his own clubhouse, where he has memorabilia from the show. There's a stuffed toy rabbit that was gifted from one housewife to another, and that housewife didn't want it because they were having a fight at the time. So Andy took it, and it's in the clubhouse. So
oh my goodness.
It's like a museum, I guess.
I think I've actually seen a little bit with you of the clubhouse, and yeah, it does look like a museum. Yeah. A museum of just stuff and bits.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, and it might blow your mind, but there is a thing called BravoCon. The look on her face, listeners.
Oh dear.
I want to go to there.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Yes.
Bless you. So it's like Comic-Con, but for Bravo shows?
Yeah, or DragCon or any of the other cons I presume there are.
Sci-Fi Con?
Sure, but it is Bravo, so it's not just Housewives. Yeah. But yes, they will be there.
Okay, well, we need to get
where I'm
you
going.
there. Yeah. The Kickstarter link will be in the show notes. No. Amazing. So back to my original question. What is it about Real Housewives? I mean, we touched on this a little bit in Favourite Things, but now we have the platform to expand on it. So have at it, girl. Tell me.
Oh, I really diverted away from that question,
It's fine. It's fine.
I sat down and tried to figure out what I like about this show because I haven't been able to put my finger on it. I think the majority of why I enjoy it is because my 2 tertiary study areas are film and media and gender studies, and for me this is a great intersection of those 2 disciplines.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, there is lots of overlap and things to look at in that space, but this for me is enjoyable and fits right in there. So that's the first thing I'd say. Yeah, and there's lots in there we can unpack if you want to, but I'll move on. Yeah, sort of trying to give some credit to it. It's also like sociologically interesting and the socioeconomics of it. I sort of mentioned in the Favourite Things episode that intersectional feminism is a really big part of it. And the reaction of my friends and family that I lean into, but also just the drama, honestly, the escapism. It's low effort, it's outrageous, and it is very entertaining.
And also addictive. So in preparation for this episode, I think I watched 5 episodes last night.
I'm so proud of you.
Not only was it really strange to watch it without you, because like when I think Real Housewives, I think of you, and previous to last night, the only times I'd ever watched it was with you.
Yep.
So it was very strange watching it without you, but I couldn't stop.
You're hooked now.
What have you done? But it was just, I don't even know how to explain it, because there are parts of it that feel extremely scripted because production value makes for good shows, right? Like they have to pull on that thread a little bit. But then other parts of it, I was like, oh, okay, like this is obviously a genuine feeling, whatever, or, you know, genuine thought, whatever is going on at the time. But it was such a weird juxtaposition of like, right, you've poked their beer, you want to keep this going, and okay, these are just people living their lives. It was really fascinating. So some of the notes that we can unpack that I have written.
Lay it on me.
The first one was just, and I quote, so much stuff. They have so much stuff.
Materialism.
Clothes, jewelry. Like, I was just like, why have you got so many things?
This is coming from you, Melissa?
No, I have a lot of books.
Yes, okay.
I have a lot of books. It's not a lot of stuff. Unless you count spooky stuff, but we don't, because that's life. Anyway, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, look how many shoes you have. Look how many dresses you have. Why does your house have so many bedrooms? Like, what,
This was specifically Beverly Hills, wasn't
yes,
it?
that's the only one I watched.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, the other series and the other locations and personalities are going to be more nuanced. And, you know, this might be a multi-part episode because there's probably so much to unpack. But that was the first thing I noticed. The second thing I wrote down was they're not just being housewives. Like,
No.
they all have businesses. They all have, you know, other things that they do
Yeah.
outside of just being, you know, a TV personality for being a housewife.
Do you want to pause on that or circle back later? Because I have thoughts on that.
No, because the next one might get us laughing. So
Okay,
let's unpack this one.
Okay. Yeah, the concept of a housewife is very interesting in the show. Not many of them adhere to that, and a lot of their relationships fall apart during their time on the show as well. I'm not sure if some of that is pressure from the situation they're being put in. Sometimes they think it's, well, for example, Camille Grammer, whose maiden name I can't remember, but was married to Kelsey Grammer, and he was apparently having an affair. I think that's pretty accurate to say, I don't think. Anyway, but he kind of encouraged her to join the show kind of to keep her busy so he could go live his life. He actually moved to New York and left her in LA. Their relationships and dynamics are quite interesting and quite varied. And the concept of a housewife, if you consider it being stay-at-home parent with sort of no work or whatever, that's not accurate for lots of them. So yeah, I have sort of considered whether or not it's like a feminist text, right? But like, even though they show women as entrepreneurs and like having their own ambitions and trying to have it all, it's kind of, I still don't think you could call it a feminist text because of how they're portrayed, but that's sort of, you know, going off a little bit. But yeah, in general, the mold of a housewife is not often being filled as you'd expect it, I'd say. Some of them are single, some of them are dating people far older or sometimes younger, and some have kids, some don't, some work, some don't. Yeah,
So I mean, you could even argue that the housewife doesn't come into it at all, except you know, there's a group of them that are wives and they all have houses, like you know, and a lot of them you could also argue that they're there because of the celebrity they had before the show was started, right? The season I'm watching, and again, this is why I'm talking to you about it, because I don't know these things, but like Denise Richards is there.
Yes.
Right? She's famous for being an actress and being married to Charlie Sheen. So like, where does the housewife part of it come in? Is it like, did she get on the show because of who she was prior to the show? Or is it because she moved to a certain area?
I think
And they all kind of
like
live together or close to each other, rather?
Yeah, there is like a a vetting process that is sort of touched on occasionally in reunions and stuff. Before I go down there, I should also mention that I don't really have extra textual knowledge about these people. I don't follow them. Like, they have whole arguments and things on social media that then come up in the show that I miss out on because I don't engage with them outside of the show. So I feel like there's a whole other world to this that I'm getting half the story, kind of.
Right.
And that's okay with me.
Yeah.
I like to engage with them when I want to. And they'll explain anything juicy, I'm sure. But but yeah, so there is a vetting process on how they cast the housewives.
Right.
And I think in Beverly Hills in particular, a lot of them have links to Hollywood history, which is partly why I began my journey with Beverly Hills.
Okay.
Because, you know, having studied film and having an interest in Hollywood and cinema and all of that, it also, like, some of them link in with true crime. There's some ties to O.J. Simpson and some of those original cast members. So, yes, they are often bringing something else to the table beyond just being a wife who lives in the same place. And they do have to be somewhat wealthy. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a wealth threshold? Do you know?
I think a lot of them lose their wealth as well during the process. There have been legal cases. Some of the housewives have gone to jail. Some of their partners have gone to jail. There have been drink driving convictions and all sorts of, you know, big heavy life stuff that comes up. So yeah. I don't know what the threshold would be, but they don't all stay as wealthy as they were at the beginning. We'll put it that way.
One of the episodes I watched last night was when they went to the Bahamas.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it was just amazing. And then Kyle at dinner getting this Rolex delivered to her at dinner, and then they put the price of the Rolex up, and I'm like, that's 10 grand on a watch.
Oh, I love when they put the price on the screen.
It's fascinating. I've seen more expensive watches, but it was such a novel concept to me that they were sitting having dinner in the Bahamas at this fancy ass restaurant, and then she's like, oh, by the way, yeah, new watch, yay. And I'm like, cool, but what the fuck is happening?
This is Kyle Richards, for anyone who's wondering. She is the aunt of Paris Hilton.
Oh, we didn't know that.
She is, and a child star. Yes, both of her sisters have been housewives at one point as well. Kathy Hilton and Kim Richards have both also been housewives of Beverly Hills.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting to have these people who could do anything and have anything, and they choose to get drunk and yell at each other. What's not to like about it?
I mean, who doesn't love a little bit of drama, right?
Yeah, I also kind of wanted to touch on what you said about it being scripted. So part of how I've wedged Real Housewives into my life was to use the guise of study to do so. So I have written 2 academic essays on the Real Housewives throughout my undergrad, and I struggled to find one of them last night, but I did read my first one, and my writing has come so far. Bless. But I was discussing the sort of notion of whether reality TV can be considered real. And I think I'm quite protective of Housewives as not being scripted. I absolutely believe it's produced, and there are provocations or nudges from the producers to bring something up or engage in a certain topic, but you cannot say it's scripted, I don't think. Maybe the talking heads are, but not the show itself.
Yeah, and produced is what I meant more than scripted.
Oh, no, of course.
I just chose the wrong word. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's okay. A lot of people do actually think all reality shows like that are fully scripted, but I would like to come to the Housewives' defense and say no. They've said some dumb stuff, so
yeah. Some of it is just, it's wild. So do you want to know the next thing I wrote down?
Yes, please.
Goat yoga. Immediately I wanted to do it.
So California.
It's so ridiculous, but I just wanted to do it. It looked like so much fun, and, you know, we're not going to unpick the ethics and morality of having goats in a yoga class, but it just looked like so much fun and so stupid.
Yeah, they certainly pick some strange activities to do.
Oh, I've got so many notes. Lime green fishnet.
Is that a quote?
No, that was what I wrote down. Lime green
fishnet. Who was
fishnet.
wearing lime green fishnets?
I believe it was Erica.
Oh, okay.
Was it Erica? No, it might have been Dorit.
Erica normally has really good fashion.
Yeah, no, I think it was actually Dorit was wearing it. And I was like, what
that sounds more like
monstrosity
Dorit.
is this? It was one of those situations where I wished you were in the room so I could just look at you and you'd know exactly what I meant. I was like, what is this? All of the sunglasses appear to be okay so far. We haven't had any stupid sunglasses that I've seen. As you know, that's a pet peeve of mine. Yeah. Michelle Visage.
Don't watch Salt Lake City.
Okay. Sunglasses bigger than your face?
There is huge and pink tinted with like no frame. Yeah. You know who you are, Angie Harrington. There was a pair, a famous pair in Beverly Hills in an earlier season than what you're watching, Mel, where a friend of the Housewives, because there are, the recurring cast members each season and then friends of who turn up a lot, but they're not official housewives. So there is a friend of called Dana in the early seasons of Beverly Hills who didn't quite fit in with the other housewives because she was flaunting her wealth a bit too much for their liking. But she had a pair of sunglasses that someone says, "Oh, I like your sunglasses." And she points to them and she goes, "Oh, really? 25,000. Can you believe it? 25,000. This is in like maybe 2009 or something. So a bit ridiculous with inflation, what they'd be now. But yeah, I think she went to jail actually.
Is it because she keeps spending her money on stupid stuff like sunglasses? So they had to lock her up.
Sometimes I feel like Charlie Kelly and It's Always Sunny when he's pointing at that board of all of the things with the red string between them like a madman. Like that's me talking about Real Housewives.
I love it. I'm here for it. One of the things that I wrote down that I found really interesting that I think we could unpack a little bit more was the reason behind them going to the Bahamas.
Okay.
And so I thought it was really lovely that Dorit's like, look, all of this drama has happened. Let's actually just spend some time together. We'll air it out if that's what we want to do.
Classic move.
Classic. But I like the idea of that is very sweet, that she wants to take all of these people together so they can, regardless of whether it's produced or not, like have a conversation, try and air it out. And what I thought about was that, okay, so, if we want to relax or whatever as, lesser mortals, shall we say, we might want to go on a holiday, go away for a weekend or do a staycation or something. But going to the Bahamas and staying at these fancy resorts is completely outside of our wheelhouse. It's not possible unless one of us wins lotto.
I was going to say.
Hold out hope. Buy a ticket. But I just found it really interesting that there was that similarity but then juxtaposition, and it's like they've gone to do this for rest, recovery and rebuilding friendships and all of this sort of thing, but it's like that to me just highlighted the absolute privilege of their situation. And in principle I'm not begrudging them doing what they want to do. It's their money. I'm sure they've done the mahi so they can have the treats, but it just was so astounding to me that it was just bam like that. I'm going to fly you all in a private jet to the Bahamas so we can reconnect and have a relaxation time.
Yeah, I do think they're possibly contractually obliged to go on at least one vacation per season, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
And I wonder if any of it is funded by the show, if they contribute to it somehow. I'm not too sure. But, I mean, if you have the means, nothing like that would be a bother. We could go wherever if you wanted now, especially with a private plane. So a lot of the show is sort of fraught and, tense relationships that they then repair, and then something else happens and then someone else has a problem, and they do often bring everyone together in the hopes of resolving it, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I finally caught up today on all of Salt Lake City. I finished, I'm up to date. They're still releasing episodes, but in the most recent one, they all met up together, and then they were having a fine time, and then one person tried to clear the air with someone, and then the person involved in that pivoted and started attacking someone else, who then pivoted and started attacking someone else, and it derailed so quickly. But it was really entertaining to see they can be so resilient and so loving towards each other in some sort of dysfunctional family. They do often comment that they have a family with the other housewives, because I think once the outside world gets involved and they start getting picked on online or maybe in person, they do band together because they're sharing the experience of going through that. So I think there is a kinship and resilience to their relationships, but day to day they can be volatile, which makes for good TV.
Yeah, and I think I did write something about that somewhere, about the fact that on one hand they can seem really tight, really close.
They bounce back so quick.
And I just, it blows my mind how they can have this thing that seems to be the biggest drama in the world and like everyone's really pissed off and feeling all their feelings, and the next minute it's like, we're going to sit down and have dinner together. I'm like, okay, but how much of that is like, how uncomfortable are you at that dinner table if you're still feeling all your feelings? Like one of the episodes last night, Teddy was clearly very uncomfortable.
Teddy Mellencamp, that's John Cougar Mellencamp's daughter, thank you.
Yes, sorry, yes.
I'll give the context.
Thank you. And it was just like, it was obvious that she was upset about the fucking dog thing. Honestly, I'm sick of it. But it's like, she still had to go and sit at that table when she was clearly not happy. And then in the end it was LVP that got up and left instead of Teddy. And it's just, it must be hard to sit there if you're having an argument with someone and still have to do the work that you're contractually obliged to do.
I mean, they are being compensated for it, though. Like, how many times do people do emotional work that isn't compensated, whereas this is, they're getting something out of it, should I say.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you unpick that further, is that even fair? Like, if it is actually really upsetting, whatever the situation is there any sort of amount of like financial compensation or whatever that would make up for that? Like if you and I, for example, had a massive, massive big argument, but I was paid $1 million to sit at a dinner table with you, I was like, I would rather not have the money and sit and have a conversation with you and sort it out. Like, do you know what I mean?
Why not both?
But like I just... if I needed to sit in my feelings for a bit, you throwing money at me is not going to make me sit somewhere where I'm uncomfortable.
They do have agency. Like they do turn down things sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes they quit the show if they can't deal with it.
And I guess that's what I'm digging at.
Yeah. I would say that they can make that choice themselves. Yeah. I think that sometimes they do sort of plead with the producers and they leave it on in the footage of them saying, I can't do this or get me away from her. And sometimes a little bit of the outside creeps in, like they have to get security involved sometimes when the fights become physical, because they have done in the past. There's also a really interesting dynamic shift when the men are involved. So when it's just the women, it's very sort of predictable, can be really catty, sometimes physical. But when they involve the husbands, they all feel a shift. They've actually discussed it, I think. It might have been Beverly Hills. They were arranging a girls' trip and one of them brought their husband and they were like, you've just changed everything now. I feel like I can't have my girls' trip. I can't relax because, I don't know, it shifts the dynamic for them. And when the husbands fight, it does feel very different as well. It's, quite an interesting distinction there.
To me, that sort of resonates as like a real world problem. That's something that would be easily experienced by, by us and our friend group, for example. Like, that doesn't seem unique to them. So it's really nice that in a way that sort of stuff gets highlighted as well. And they have had that conversation about it, because it's like, it's so easy to get sucked into the production value of it, the TV of it, the glamour of it. But actually, these are just real people, sometimes doing things that seem untenable and, out of our reach. But it's also, they're just real people living their lives, doing what they do.
Yeah. I had something else I was going to grab on the end of that, but I've lost it. So we
can circle back if we need to.
Oh, that was it. I also just want to give a shout out to the editors and the people who work with them, because there's a there's a book.
Of course
there's
there
a
is.
Real Housewives book that I purchased and read very quickly. It's called Not All Diamonds and Rosé, which you might recognise. It was one of Lisa Vanderpump's slogans, because they have introductory slogans, by someone called Dave Quinn, he calls it the definitive oral history. So basically he interviewed a bunch, I think it was like over 100 housewives and a bunch of the production members about the show and about controversies on the show to get their side of things and just put it down that way. So having read that, I found out that each sort of city where they're based has their own production crew, and they're really often quite close with the people who are working with them day to day, and like they've mentioned people by name and said, like, this person really helped me when I was dealing with XYZ. So, but I did want to give a big shout out to whoever edits that show, because each city feels different to watch. I think they have different music as well, sort of background music and opening credits music, but Potomac especially has the funniest editing. I often laugh out loud on their show. Real Housewives of Potomac gets a shout out from me.
Amazing.
Solid. Really good.
And that's really nice to hear as well, because obviously you know more about the show than I do. And so it's nice to know that they can be quite close with the production team, and that there are people that are there to look after them.
Yeah.
Because, there's all this stuff going on all the time, and I imagine that must be so overwhelming. And if you are fighting with someone that you were really close with, that would be hard as well. So it's nice to know that they've got that support. Another observation which you might find quite funny: Lisa Vanderpump's voice gets very high when she's upset. Just something I noticed.
Oh, I'm casting my mind back. She's been off the show for so long now.
Yeah.
But her spin-off, Vanderpump Rules, has been probably the most successful spin-off of the entire franchise, I'd say. And I think they recently overhauled their entire cast as well. So some big changes happening there. But she was a favourite of mine back in the day. But the season you watched is kind of when she fell from grace. I think, was it season 5?
I don't know which season it is.
No, it was later than that. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I will say I do have my favourites in each city that I watch. They do change. But I'll give a shout out to a couple if you're interested.
Yeah.
So Beverly Hills, Lisa Vanderpump was my favourite. But I actually have been really enjoying Kyle Richards, who's been getting a lot of heat lately. If you ever watch anything on YouTube to do with this, the comments are always scathing. That's sort of the only extra textual input I'm getting. And so it seems that a lot of people don't like her, but I rate her. New York, Sonia Morgan was my favourite. She was married to some relative of JP Morgan, so that's how she got her money. Yeah, Dorinda Medley. She's a wild card. Every time I think I like her, she does something pretty inexcusable or just appalling. I'm like, ooh, I don't know about this. But that's where Countess Luann comes from, Melissa. You'll be familiar with it.
Countess, money can't buy your class.
Money cannot buy your glass. But yeah, she's done all right with her music career. That's the other thing. They sort of all branch out into other things and use the platform to grow their businesses and opportunities. So it does feel like a big web of interconnected stuff and no shortage of things to consume to do with Real Housewives. I think it's impressive if people manage to avoid it, to be honest, especially with me around.
Well, I only know it because of you. So.
Yeah. And I mean, there will be references to Housewives that people don't even know are references to Housewives, like that meme of the cat screaming and the woman pointing at the cat. That's from Beverly Hills. It's Taylor Armstrong. Oh my God, I've written down some of the iconic moments.
Amazing, let's hear them.
Okay, so when Countess Luann was cheated on, it was revealed, she was sending a text to her fiance/new husband or whatever, but she was using the voice to text function, and she said, "How can you do this to me? ? Iconic. This is also her. She was writing a text and she said, she was reading it out loud, and she said, "Sorry, I called you a pedophile. Hope you can come to my next party."
Oh my goodness.
Anything Nene Leakes does, she's incredible. She's
I know
an
that
icon.
name.
Oh yeah, she ended up on, is it The Apprentice, the one with Trump?
I'm not engaged.
Anyway. No, I did not watch it. This is long before anything to do with him. But Vicky Gunvalson's partner faked having cancer. That was a pretty big thing.
Who does that?
Oh, he was the worst. It was a really good season. There were physical fights, which we try not to promote, but are always interesting when they happen. It was especially interesting because this one was in Atlanta between Portia and Kenya. It was during a reunion. Kenya was winding up Portia, and Portia grabbed her hair and pulled her to the floor with it and basically got fired for that, which is fair enough. But the essay that I couldn't find that I wrote on Real Housewives of Atlanta and intersectional feminism was sort of looking at the image of the black woman being portrayed as violent, and so sort of tying into that stuff is really, there's a lot in there. The scandal of Brandy and Denise Richards potentially having slept together.
Oh, I think
is this news to you?
No, I think we've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, alleged. I don't know. But that was a fun scandal. Aviva Drescher, who was a brief member of, I believe, New York, had a what do you call it when it's like an artificial limb? Like what's it?
A prosthetic.
She had a prosthetic leg that she, during an argument, pulled off and threw across a restaurant.
Oh my goodness.
I believe that was not, she wasn't told to do that, but I do believe she was sort of prompted to do like something, and maybe it was in her head because of that. So she has spoken about that, but it was pretty iconic. So yeah. I mean,
so
masters
much.
be damned. I've peaked in life to be able to talk about this. I'm so happy.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, you know, I always enjoy having conversations like this with you. We'll happily build another blanket fort and watch more Real Housewives with you,
Yes.
because that was amazing.
I'm going to get you onto some of the other cities. We need to
Well,
move on.
It's only fair. There's
I'll
one thing that I did want to touch on a little bit, because I imagine it will, you know, transcend the boundaries of a season or a series, a specific location. What I wrote here is going for plastic surgery like people go for coffee.
Ah.
But that juxtaposed with the fact that one of Kyle's daughters had an eating disorder, and she talks about seeing someone at a restaurant and how they were really, really thin, and she was upset seeing them. She's like, I don't want them to be this way. I don't want them to be feeling that way about their bodies. And she got upset because she's like, no, I don't want to see them going through what I went through. And so it was really, really interesting, because there is this focus on appearance, because obviously they have to look a certain way. They talk about, you know, getting plastic surgery, like all of this sort of stuff, and talking about like, oh, I can't eat this because I, you know, don't want to eat this sort of thing, like you bitches better eat sort of thing. And I just found it a real, I'm not articulating this very well, but it was a really, really interesting juxtaposition between Kyle and her concern for her daughter, but then with the other cast members maybe not eating or going to get plastic surgery, like Kyle went with Lisa Vanderpump to get plastic surgery. And so I want to unpick that a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, immediately when you mentioned plastic surgery, I thought of Adrienne Malouf, who was an early Beverly Hills housewife, and her husband at the time, Paul Nassif, is one of the two people, plastic surgeons on the TV show Botched.
Right.
So the other person on Botched is, watch me forget his name, Terry Dubrow, and his wife Heather Dubrow is also a housewife now, not in Beverly Hills in the OC. So these are all housewife adjacent people, which I love. I love making those connections. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely normalized from early on in Beverly Hills for Paul's, you know, presence, and a lot of them have had work done. It's a common question in the reunion episodes, because the viewers who write in questions often ask, what have you had? They use it, like they weaponize it against each other. Taylor Armstrong has really big lips. I think it was a silicone like implant, not just an injection that she kind of can't get rid of now that she's stuck like that. She gets called like duck lips and all sorts. And similarly with eating disorders, it's something that they are pressuring each other to engage with, and then also using as a weapon against each other. So Lisa Rinna has been accused of having an eating disorder. Her daughter actually does have, or did have, an eating disorder, and they blamed her. So Lisa, that is, which is not necessarily true and like really hurtful. So I think that especially in the Beverly Hills and Orange County shows, there is more of that pressure. I feel like in New York there's a lot less. In Atlanta there's a little bit, but it definitely varies from city to city. I think the Beverly Hills is definitely the most focused on those physical attributes, as opposed to just like the fashion that they do in some of the other cities. But, you know, God forbid you wear the same outfit more than once. But yeah, so it's definitely prevalent. You're right. I'm just not sure what conclusions we can draw from that.
Yeah. It was just, again, really interesting to see that juxtaposition between caring about the daughter and the people that she saw in the cafe. Like that was beautiful. But then Denise Richards like, oh, I didn't dress up for this, or like we're just going to go, like I said, go get plastic surgery like we would get coffee sort of thing. And I'm like, it just was a really interesting.
Was it plastic surgery, or was it just touch-ups now?
I mean, I don't know the difference, honestly.
You will learn.
I will learn. Educational.
It'll be like Botox and fillers and stuff they just do at a a walk-in sort of day clinic.
I guess that's what it was
it
then.
will be. It will be.
Yeah,
I think a lot
okay.
of them do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, not quite plastic surgery.
No, you're
but
okay. It's
yeah.
still body modification
Yeah.
for the sake of appearance. So
I'm covered in tattoos, so is that
well,
not the
there
same
you
thing?
go.
Is that not the same thing?
Oh, we're going down a wormhole there.
How long have we
Rabbit hole.
got? How long have we got? Okay, so moving away from Beverly Hills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you wanted to move away. We've got plenty of
yeah,
other seasons. So what are some of the differences between Beverly Hills and, I don't know, do you have a favourite other city?
They give different things.
Okay.
New York is pure chaos. Like, they are really wild and up there, which is really fun. I started with Beverly Hills because of the Hollywood connection, but also their houses are insane. I loved looking, I mean, it's sort of, am I aspiring to it or just like, self-flagellating that I'm like, oh, look at this house.
Yeah.
But like their houses in Beverly Hills were really, really cool. I liked seeing them, whereas in New York, they're often in apartments, even though they're wealthy. They, it's just sort of the way housing is there.
Yeah.
And often they were nice apartments. But yeah, very different vibe. The sort of fashion scene, I'd say they often compete between New York and Beverly Hills. Like I said, the editing is different. The vibe is different. I feel like Atlanta has cool connections to the music scene because Candy Burris, who wrote No Scrubs for TLC,
Hey.
she's going for the EGOT. I think she's got 3 of them. She's been producing plays lately, trying to get a Tony. I'm not sure if she's won anything, and I think she's stopped being a housewife now too. But she was a great addition. So there are ties there to the music industry. And Potomac, what does Potomac give? Potomac's like, I don't really know how to describe them. They all feel different, and they're good for different reasons. And but still enjoyable. I think maybe a couple of previous seasons of Beverly Hills have been quite dull in comparison, but I'd say that New York's been really good, and they've done a complete overhaul lately as well. So they're the first city to completely change the cast in one go. Normally they add them as they go, as people drop out and try and instill new blood. And then in New York it wasn't really working because all of the original cast members, they were like a clique and they wouldn't really let anyone new in, and you had to be really tough to roll with them because they could be scathing.
Right.
And so they tried to split New York into 2 shows. They wanted to keep Roni legacy, to have all of the original people who were still there, who were in their 60s, mind. Like, they've, Ramona's been there forever. I think there's I wrote it down how many seasons has New York has had 15 seasons. So Ramona was there for 13-ish years. So, you see their kids grow up, you see their lives change. It's really, really interesting. But so they were trying to keep all of those cast members but put them in a different show because it wasn't working as the Real Housewives anymore, having these elderly women. Sorry to anyone over 60. But yeah, so they've got new blood there now. Yeah, they're all very different, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite?
No.
The impossible question.
Yeah, there is. I don't know if you can call it a spin-off. There's one called Ultimate Girls Trip.
Oh my goodness.
And there's 4 seasons of that, and that's where they take all stars from different franchises. Hey.
Is this Drag Race or is it Real
No,
Housewives?
this is me putting it in terms you understand.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for translating to drag speak. I get that.
They take housewives from different cities and put them all on one trip.
Right.
So that's quite interesting. Again, one of those seasons was quite boring, but often it's really, really cool to see them interact with people that feel like they're in a different TV world entirely. So I like it for that, but I don't think I can have a favourite. I think there are probably seasons I like more than others, but I can't rank the cities, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's been the most interesting or entertaining scandal or drama?
Oh, God.
Yeah, she's coming in with the big guns.
I don't... We're talking about 87 seasons
Yeah.
now. Vicky's, partners faking cancer was really big. Erica's husband, who was the lawyer for Erin Brockovich.
Oh
yeah, he's in jail. I think he was defrauding widows and burn victims out of millions of dollars. So that was a big scandal.
Yeah.
The Brandy and Denise Richards was a big scandal. Oh man, there's a lot of drunk driving scandals as well. But yeah, I don't know. We're talking about a decade worth of TV here, so that's a hard one to answer.
And I mean, it seems like there's one particular thing or two particular things that are quite big that they'll maybe chew on for half of the season or for throughout the season.
Definitely the one you watch. That is a really boring season.
Yeah.
There's one drama with a dog called Lucy Lucy Apple Juicy, who was adopted from Vanderpump Pets or whatever, and then bit a child and a husband, and so they adopted it out to someone else, and then word got back to Lisa Vanderpump, and she was really upset, and
the
whole
dog ended
season's worth.
in a kill shelter.
I heard that wasn't true. Did you?
I haven't finished the season yet. Spoiler.
Yeah, that's not a season worth of story,
No.
in my opinion.
And the fact that I'm like, 5 or 6 episodes in and they're still talking about this flippin' dog, I'm like, okay.
No, we'll get you onto a better season. But another one that was, quite interesting actually was Yolanda Hadid or Yolanda Foster. So she's Gigi Hadid and Bella Hadid's mum. Mm-hmm. She was married to David Foster at the time, who's a famous musician. But she had Lyme disease. I don't know if it's had or has, really, really badly. And there was a huge scandal because Lisa Rinna, being messy, was trying to say she had Munchausen's disease. So that was a tricky one. That was a really, really bad time. But yeah, that was a pretty big scandal too. Yeah.
I think so far from what I watched, my 2 favourites are Erica and Lisa Rinna.
Yeah.
I think just because Erica is like, I'm not going to take any of this shit, and Lisa Rinna is just chaos.
I'll tell you what, there will be people who will hate that you've said that, but I'm with you. I've always been Team Rinna and her drama, but my good friend Tyrrell will not agree because she I think followed her on Twitter or something, and it was just a mess. Like her outside of the TV show life was pretty chaotic. So.
Right. Sorry, Tyrrell. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I don't know. It's just great. Everyone should watch it. It's nice. It's a distraction from this hellscape, and
right. The world is burning. We might as well see some pretty houses, right?
Yeah. And if you want to see the rich burn too, they'll be with us when everything goes up in smoke. So I don't know.
I think maybe the takeaway from the episode is build a blanket fort, watch Real Housewives.
Yeah. Do what makes you happy. And for me, that's Housewives.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Thank you. I loved it.
I'm finally glad we got here.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking with this episode if you were listening. I know it's a tall order for some people to engage with this.
No. I mean, we could probably even do another one after I watch more. Give it a year. We'll see how we go. Thanks, Lemon. This episode is supported by Te Whare Tawharo at Otago Whakaihu Waka, the University of Otago. Te Whare Tawharo is a place of shelter to reduce the impact of sexual violence and intimate partner violence within our campus communities. This show is kindly supported by the Rainbow New Zealand Charitable Trust. The Rainbow Umbrella theme song is by Paul S. Allen and Beth. Check them out on Spotify. New episodes of The Rainbow Umbrella are available every 4th Thursday on Otago Access Radio 105.4 FM, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Do you have an idea for an episode or something you would like to kōrero about? Get in touch at rainbowumbrellapod@gmail.com.